be handling the paper Principles of Marketing. In that, we'll see the topic of consumer buying decision process. Now, before going into consumer buying decision process, earlier we had discussed about consumer buying behavior. You're very clear how a consumer buys, what are the different factors to be considered. Now, after understanding the factors, we'll go over the process. Now, what is the first stage? See here, you can see in this picture, what is the first one? Recognition of a need. As a consumer, you will first understand what is your need, what you need, what is your product that is required by you, or what is the service. Understand what you need, and then you go for the informational search. Now, what is this information search? There is a wide sources from where you can get information. That is, we basically divide it into internal and external sources. Now, internal sources is basically the one which you get from your families, friends, or the close-knit ones. External is the social media where you're very well aware how the social media is giving you information. So, for example, if you take any simple product, let us take a pen that as usual I take. If you want to buy a pen, there are sources are so many alternatives are there. So, you will be searching and you will make a list of it, maybe from the external or the internal sources. Then comes the alternatives. So, from here you have got a list of alternatives. Now, you will be evaluating one by one. What is your requirement? I need a gel pen or a ballpoint pen, isn't it? And then you start evaluating, and when you're evaluating, you will look into the factors like what is the price and quality, isn't it? If I am paying 100 rupees, I should get the value for it. So, these are certain basic things that you look into and you evaluate it, and finally you go for the purchase decision. That is, you're buying the product where you decide, okay, I'll buy such and such pen for such and such price. Now you're buying, and then comes the post-purchase evaluation. That is, after buying the products also, nowadays we consumers are very well aware about our rights, isn't it? And if we are not satisfied, what we'll do, we can very well ask back the person why the product is so, and if you're not satisfied, immediately we'll switch on to the other one. So, post-purchase evaluation is also very important, where we check whether I am satisfied or what I bought is good for the price what I paid. Okay, so this is the process as a consumer we go into. So, I hope you're clear with the concept of consumer behavior, factors, and consumer buying decision process. Now, we go to the next one. Now, we are going into a different sector, that is organizational buying behavior. Till now, we were looking as a consumer, myself, I need to buy something. Now we will see organization. Organization means corporates, companies. They are also buying, isn't it? They are also buying raw materials that is required for the production activities, or there will be some, even they are buying the stationeries that is required to run their organization. So they also do engage in buying. So we have to understand what is organizational buying, and we will study what is organizational buying behavior. Okay. So now here I have written the definition. Organizational buying behavior is a process by which a formal organization, that's what I said, corporate. It can be an Indian corporate or it can be a multinational company, anything is fine. Establishes a need for product and services, and then they identify, evaluate, and choose a supplier and a brand. It is also known as, this is very important, keep a note of it, organizational buying behavior is also known as B2B, business to business buying, or we call it as an institutional buying. Now here also the same thing, you can see the same thing is coming. You identify a need, you select out all the options that's available, you evaluate them, but here comes a difference. You're getting a good supplier. And here I'll tell you the step comes a little more bigger, where you give the supplier an information, or you will tell them that they have to send the quotes. Now they'll send the tender. From there, which is good one, which is the least one, we'll pick it up and then we go for the buying. So that we will see in the process. Understand organizational buying behavior. We are looking into the buying activity that is done by an organization or by an institution. Are you clear? Okay. Now we'll go down to the next one. What are the features? Now, organization itself has some features. That is, when as a consumer, when I am buying something, I need not look into anyone else's decision. I can decide what I want to buy and what I don't want to buy. But when you're considering as an organization, it's not so easy, isn't it? Organization itself consists of different levels. There is the top level, or the middle level, lower level, and there will be so many departments in the organization. Like we have the finance department, production department, marketing department, HR department, isn't it? So if any one of the department also requires something, it's not so easy that one person or the one department can take the decision. It's a tedious process, and it involves many people also. And usually what the organization is buying, we say they buy in large quantities. As a consumer, okay, even if I buy that is there, and even all the different management level, from the higher level or the middle level, lower level, we have to get the permissions from everywhere, from where you have to get it. Then it's a complex process. Why it is a complex process? Since it involves many people, it involves the decisions to be taken by many people, we say it's a complex or a tedious process. As a consumer, me buying, it's very simple. But when for an organization, it's not so easy. Then comes, as I told you, it's in large quantity. We buy in bulk quantity that is required for the production activity or whatever the purpose organization is buying. Then comes, it is influenced by factors. Now, when I was explaining about the consumer buying factors, what were the factors? The cultural factors, social factors, psychological factors, they were the most important ones. Personal factors like age, gender, your education, occupation, then comes your perception, learning, attitude. We have seen that. Now when you think about an organization, I don't think the age of the organization or the gender of the organization, those factors are not considered. So organizational factors are very important. We have to see it in detail, but I'll tell you, see, basically it's the environment, the organizational structure, the interpersonal characteristics, and the individual, that is a risk that is associated with each individual that's working in the organization has to be considered. We'll see it in detail and down. Now, organizational complexity. This point talks that, see, every organization is very complex. I'm not talking about the complexity of the process. As an organization, when you take, for example, we'll take an Indian company and a multinational company. You just imagine the culture that exists in an Indian company and the culture that's there in a multinational organization or an MNC is different, isn't it? Because in MNC we say we have people from diverse countries and diverse culture coming together and working. So every organization has its own culture, values, morals, and the complexity. And that differs. And how the differs, I can tell you, the buying behavior will also vary. Indian company requirements and a multinational company requirement will vary, because even the complexity is also changing. Then comes the business environment. This environment talks about the environment where the business is existing. That is, you need to look into, it's not only the organization. If a company wants to buy, they have to see what are the rules and regulations that's kept by the government. Because for example, if the company wants to import something, now do you think importing is so easy? They have to get the license. Or maybe importing, they have to get the permissions from the government that they can import. Then they have to pay the duties, custom duty or excise duty, you know how the tax structure goes in our country. So it's not so easy. So the business environment will also decide how to buy, when to buy and what to buy. So these are certain features of organizational buying behavior. We'll see the factors also and then we'll stop. Okay. Now, what are the factors that's affecting organizational buying behavior? First one is economic factor. Economic word itself clearly states that it's talking about the money or the profit or the income. Now I'll tell you one more thing. We also need to look into the economic conditions of the country in which the company is existing. For example, in India, now if we say recession is going on, naturally that recession will have an impact on the organization that's functioning. If it's a boom period, naturally that will have a good impact on the organization. So in the boom period, the buying will be more, but in a recession or a depression period, that will be less. So the economic conditions or the economic cycles we say, okay, then the interest rates that's prevailing in the market, how much of the bank is charging the interest rate. If the interest rates are very high, because most of the buying of the organization goes on credit basis. If I'm not wrong, you all know that cash basis, sales or purchases are not happening, isn't it? So interest rates that are charged by the bank, that is also to be considered. So that's economic. Now, when you compare it with consumer, what is economic factor? Only consider your income, your occupation, your income. You need not look into what's happening in the economic condition. That is not considered. But for an organization, you have to look into that. Then what is next one? Technological factor. Yes, of course, if the company is a technology-oriented one, they have to look into the new updated technology when they are buying it. So that's another major constraint, that when you're getting something for a company, you have to make sure that you're keeping updated with the new technology that's there in the market. So look into the technology and then decide what to buy. Now this comes a major issue mainly for the IT industries, I can tell you. Like even for the textile industry, I'm just giving an example. Nowadays in the textile industry also you can see that all these knitting and all the embroideries are done with machines, isn't it? So you need to look into what is your technology requirement, then you have to decide your buying. Now comes political and legal. Yes, as I told you, the political system or the government rules and regulations that's prevailing in the country will also impact what to buy. Then comes social responsibility factor. Earlier I not there. But nowadays, everywhere if you go, you can see one term is mentioned very clearly, that is sustainability. Correct? Whatever you do is with the sustainable factor. So, as an organization, when you're buying or doing something, make sure that it is sustainable. What do you mean by sustainable? You are not doing any harm to the environment. Your carbon footprint on the environment is very, very less. And you're doing everything, or you're satisfying the current generation needs without compromising the needs of the future. Isn't it? So, make sure that your CSR is very strong and you're not hammering it in any way when you're indulging in any kind of a buying behavior for the company. Then comes the organizational factor that talks about the organization structure, the size of the company, that is what is the number of employees, how many departments are there. If you take a sole proprietorship, it's a very simple organization, one owner and maybe very less employees. But if you take a corporate or a company, you know how the structure goes, isn't it? You have the managing director or the CEO. The chart itself is very big. So imagine how the organization goes. So that factor also decides or that impacts the buying decision. Then risk attitude. Here comes the personal attitude of the people who's working in the organization. Now, if I am included in the procurement department of an organization, I have been continuously buying a product from one supplier. Okay. Now, what happens when we are continuously buying, a good rapport comes, and there are chances of manipulation at that point of time. So, organization always prefer to keep on changing with the supplier. Yes, you can keep the person who have been supplying, but a change has to be there, maybe to avoid the manipulation and also to get the new technology. So, sometimes what happens when I am working there, I may not be ready to take the risk, why to go for another supplier, because we don't know whether we will be supplying on time, whether the product will be quality or not, isn't it? That issue will be there. So, what happens? The risk attitude is very less. So, if the person is a very good person, like the risk averseness is more good, then it is good for the organization. You will change a lot. Otherwise, you will be going on the same monotonous manner. So, that may affect. Then comes interpersonal factors. Interpersonal factor is how the organization, employees having a good relations, how everything is happening within the organization will also decide the smooth decision making of buying a certain thing in the organization. Okay, so these are certain factors which affects the organizational buying behavior. Okay, so we have seen consumer buying decision process, what is organizational buying behavior, and what are the factors that's affecting. When you study, make sure that you compare with the consumer and the organization so that easily you can understand the impact of the factors of it. I hope it's clear.